Hey folks, sorry I've been gone for a while. I sold my company, and the company I sold my company to was renting out my space, so I haven't had a studio. I've been searching around for a while to place it for a place to do these videos, so here we are. You can tell by the cheesy white backdrop. I need an iron. Anyway, a local guy brought me this KitchenAid stand mixer to fix. He said his wife was trying to make cheesecake and had everything ready and it didn't work, and she turned it on and it did this. So it doesn't do anything. My first thought was maybe the power cable. You know, they develop breaks in them sometime, and that didn't seem to take care of it. But I did notice when I shake it around a little bit, well, now it's not working. It was actually working before. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing apart, and probably in one shot too. I'll fast forward over some of the more boring stuff, but we're going to try and fix this thing in one shot. So stick with me. Okay, I said one take, and I lied. I thought maybe I had a bad outlet, because before when I would turn this on and off, it would actually intermittently work, and then it quit intermittently working. But I plugged it in and put it on a different outlet, and it's not working now, but if I do that, it will work. It'd be very noisy. So let's just take this thing apart. Of course, the first thing you always want to do is unplug, because you don't want to shock yourself. Maybe you do want to shock yourself. That's not my business. On this particular model, there is a screw right here in the back. We will remove that. Whee! And it allows us to take this strap off. The screw is on the floor. Don't forget that. Remind me of that later. Once again, I'm not an expert in this particular field. I'm an expert in just whatever comes my way, if you want to call what I do expertise. Remove this. Now we'll lift the top off, I think. Are there screws under here? There are not. Got those off. Now this came off. Here's the drive system over here. There is a board here. First thing I'm going to do, actually, I don't even know what the first thing I'm going to do is. This is slightly different than the ones I've worked on in the past. I'm going to plug it back in and just see what it does, just for the heck of it. The ones I've worked on in the past have not had a board. They've had more of a manual or an old style type of switching mechanism. See if anything's loose on the board, because that can happen. Once again, I am a trained professional, if you want to call this trained or professional. Just looking for anything loose in here, and I am not finding it. So, wait, let me check these. So these, I'm going to unplug it again. These actually do have, these are old school, well, I can't say old school, they still make them. These have brushed motors, so there's a brush in here. There's a little carbon brush in here that rides along the armature of the motor, and you used to be able to, or you still can buy them, but they used to be accessible from the outside. So just out of curiosity, we can plug this in, turn it on, and see if turning it does any good, and it doesn't. So there's clearly something, I guess, loose in here. Let me take a look-see. And it almost looks like it's something on this board itself. This is not very smart. You never want to put your fingers in anything with the power on, but, you know, once again, trained professional sort of guy. I'm going to unplug it and take this board out and just kind of see what makes it tick. Power's off. It is unplugged. We will unscrew. There are 2 screws that hold this board on, and just take a look and see if anything jumps out at us. It'd be funny if something actually jumped out at us, wouldn't it? So we'll flip this up. Nothing terribly interesting on the board, meaning nothing looks burnt up or anything like that. There's a good possibility, this is a little slide switch in here, and there's a good possibility that it's just something wrong with the switch, that it got dirty. And I have a chemical called deoxit that I can spray in there, so that may be the first thing we try. I'm going to remove these screws that hold the board on. Alright, I'm going to pause because this is the wrong size screwdriver. I'll be back in a second. One of the side effects of moving into a new space is that I don't have my tools set up yet, so I went and grabbed another screwdriver. This is the product I'm talking about. It's called Deoxit. I have no association with them. It's just a good product. And it's made for cleaning switches, mechanical switches, and potentiometers, which I believe this slide is. Now this will come off. You can see on the board here, we actually may have a switch bad here. I didn't know there was a switch in here. So I think the way this works is this switch probably connects the power, and this is a variable resistor, and this changes the speed. There's a lot more on this board than I would have thought originally. There's a chip here, and this is probably what controls everything. I'm looking around to see if there are any, I think I mentioned it before, cold solder joints. There don't appear to be. And it could actually be that it could be the variable resistor here, or it could actually be the switch. And now that I see it, it seems like a much more likely to be the problem. Of course, I may end up having to replace this board completely. I saw a video recently that talked about how these guys don't live up to the standards they used to, and I agree with that. What I'm going to go do is I'm going to go grab some some rubber gloves to work with this and hold it, but also not shock myself while I do it. So yet another pause in the action. Stick around. I'm actually using surgical gloves, and these are absolutely not a good idea. What you really want to do is use something thicker, like some leather gloves, some dry leather gloves, or they actually make electrician's gloves. The reason you don't want to use surgical gloves is that they're so thin they could break, and you'll end up getting shocked anyway. Hopefully I won't, although I guess it would make for a funny scene. You guys definitely don't want to do this. In fact, I don't recommend what I'm doing as far as plugging this in and testing it for anybody. If you're going to do what I'm doing, make sure everything you do is unplugged, and then once you get the repair done, you would unplug it. You would plug it back in and test it without putting your fingers everywhere in here. This is once again 120 volts AC going into this board, and that's enough to knock you out, or knock you on your booty anyway. So we're plugging it in. And I am being very, very careful, and I'm going to reach in here with a screwdriver and push this in. Well, that's rather weird. Well, I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to unplug it. And we're going to spray this deoxit in here. This is the product that I use. There are a lot of different electronics cleaners, and I have, like I said, I've no association with these guys. There are other brands on the market that are perfectly good. I want to say WD-40 makes an electronics cleaner that's fine. So I'm just going to spray it in here. Move this back and forth. And I'm going to try and get some in the switch, which may end up being a pain in the booty. So the downside of this deoxit is it's pretty expensive. It's notoriously expensive stuff. But I'm just spraying it in, working it back and forth, you know, kind of like you would do with soap when you're washing your dishes. You want to make sure you work it around, see what it does. So I'm going to put this back on. So this notch right here goes in this hole right here. So you're going to make sure you get that lined up when you put everything back together. Actually, it won't go back together if you don't get it lined up, I don't think. Get all of our holes lined up. What are we doing here? That's good. Okay. Now I'm only going to put one screw in, which is this one here. It's the one closest to the, actually maybe two. I'll put two screws back in to make sure everything holds together while I'm testing it. Okay, we got that back together. Plug this back in. And so I'm probably going to return this to the guy, not like this, I'll put it back together. I'm probably going to return it to the guy. Actually, what I'm going to do is let it sit overnight and see if it turns on in the morning. But ultimately, the best bet would probably be to go ahead and replace this board. I'll see what the guy wants to do, but that would probably be the, you know, the safest bet anyway. All right, let me unplug it, put it back together, and like I said, we're going to let it sit overnight. I'm going to turn the camera off for that. But when I come in tomorrow, we're going to put this back together, see if it's still working. If it is, I'll return it to the guy. If not, and of course, you know, he'll get cheesecake out of it. If not, if it doesn't work tomorrow, then we'll certainly look into the cost of the new board. So I'm back. It actually is 2 days later. I came in on a Sunday because, well, I'm just that dedicated to my art form. Anyway, turn it on. Starts right up. In this case, let me turn that off. In this case, it does appear that the deoxit did do the trick, although, as I said in previous segments, it doesn't have to be deoxit. It could be pretty much any contact cleaner. Well, not any, but most contact cleaners will do an adequate job. Anyway, hopefully that repair will hold. Hopefully it cleaned it out well enough that this thing will continue to work. If not, I actually looked it up online. This board is about 80 bucks plus shipping. And you know, if the owner wants me to do that, I can do it, but I would probably just run it like this until it either, well, hopefully it'll work forever, and if not, if it breaks again, well, then I'll replace it then. Not that difficult. Everything's put on with connectors, so it probably could be pretty easily replaced in an hour or so. Anyway, I'm going to put this sucker back together and get it back to the owner. I'm going to unplug it first because even though I'm not really messing around with anything electrical, you know, you never know. You can never be too safe. There we go. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, follow my channel. As I said earlier, I have been out for a while because I didn't have a space to work in. I now have found a new space, so hopefully I'll be creating some new content, and thanks for watching.